Perfect. So we're here. Okay, for our listeners, welcome to this episode on which I have the pleasure of being with Alex Trost. He's the leader of experience for Prismic, that is a headless CMS. We're going to talk about what that is in a few minutes. And I'm very happy to be with you. Alex, welcome. How are
Diego,
you?
thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so it's great to be
Yeah,
here.
totally. Thank you, Alex, for joining me. And okay, so the topic Alex and I agreed to talk about on this first meeting was when to go headless and when to go traditional in terms of CMS. And just as sort of a head up, a CMS system is a software used for managing content for websites and applications. And if we want to divide those into two branches, headless will be a CMS that can support sort of more complexity, that can be more flexible, that is kind of more headed towards developers and teams. Whereas traditional is a word in which I am trying to group WordPress, Webflow, for those who know Webflow, HubSpot, and maybe what I like to call DIY CMS systems, such as Wix, Squarespace. Those are kind of platforms on which you do not have to have any knowledge whatsoever about web development, web design, and the platform kind of helps you doing it all for you.
Yeah.
So
If I can add, yeah, like I see kind of the main split of headless and more traditional or even monolithic, as you might say, as does the editor part where the content is stored, does that have a front end that the client or the end user sees? Does it have a client attached to it? So is the front end and the back end tightly coupled, or are they separate? Like at Prismic, where I work, we are a headless CMS, and so we don't provide you any of the front end. We are just focusing on making that back end where your content team adds their content, where your developers make the different components for the site as good as possible. And then you or your developers, whoever you are, if you are a developer, then that's you. If you are, more of a content person, it'd be the developer that you hire or that's on your team. They worry about the whole front end part. So it's the decoupling that kind of makes it headless. And there's a lot of benefits to that we will be digging into here for sure.
okay, and it is awesome that you mentioned that, because I believe that potential some of our listeners will be marketing directors or
Cool.
marketing people. And what is front end and what is back end in terms of this CMS stuff for them? May you help
Yes.
me a little bit here?
Yeah. So the front end essentially is everything that your users will see. They won't see anything of the back end. The front end includes all of the images that are sent to the viewer, all of the buttons that they click, all of the interface, the UI part that people are actually seeing when they load up your site. That is the front end. And then anything on the back end is the data, is, like if you have sales in the back. I keep saying in the back. That doesn't help to explain what the back end is. It's the stuff in the back. No, anything that is stored in a database, or anything that your content team needs to like edit fields in. So if they're writing a blog post, that back end is essentially the box that they type the words into. Or if you're changing the price of an item, it's the little box that, you change it from $15 to $17, right? So anything like that is the backend that your team is interfacing with. Can also be a database where users are kept. So as they sign up for things, they, sign up for your newsletter or make any purchases, that all gets into a database. And that is in the back end that the front end can interface with, because there's a bridge between the two. But when you have those separated out in the sense that you can pick and choose your own, it allows you to build more modular and composable sites, so that you aren't stuck kind of just like, I love this backend, but the front end that it comes with is the bane of my existence. And if only I could separate the two, right? Like you get to pick and choose what's best for your use case. And that's where I think headless really shines.
I love this explanation. And prior to getting into sort of scenarios that will let us talk a little bit about one going one way or another, to emphasize that difference between headless and traditional. We mentioned front end is separate from back end on headless system. That is why the name, the why about the name, by the way. What exactly will be, or how will be something like WordPress, for instance, behave in terms of front end and back end? And again, for our marketing people, for our marketing lead, how does that looks like?
Yeah. So WordPress is probably a name that most people are familiar with. When I say I work at Prismic, to people just in the world, they don't, like not everyone knows Prismic, but I go, what kind of a WordPress, like just put them in the ballpark because they're not technical people. WordPress is typically a monolithic CMS in the sense that it is both the back end and the front end tightly coupled. You can run it headless. It's kind of gaining some steam lately. But for the most part, like 99% of the time, people are running a WordPress site. It's going to be both back end and front end. WordPress is huge. It is like something like 35 to 40% of the internet, like in terms of sites that have a CMS use WordPress. And I think a lot of the reason why it gained that huge market share is because it kind of became a Swiss Army knife. And by that, I mean, it can do lots of different things. What it started out as and what is like still in its core DNA is a blogging platform. Like it started and helped to kind of fuel that blogging kick back in like, what was it, like 2007-ish, where everyone had a blog, blogs were on the rise. The word blog was invented. And the tip to everyone was you have to start a blog. Every company needed a blog. That was just this big, uprising of the blog. And people then grew from that. So like these bloggers would, have this new audience. And then like, I want to tack some stuff onto this. I want to tack a store onto this blog so I can sell some merch. I want to, I don't know, just add other things onto it because I'm on WordPress already and there's a plugin ecosystem. So let's start to add some like SEO tools and some other tracking and analytics and all that kind of stuff. And so you start to take this like streamlined blogging platform and just tack all these things onto it. Like it's like, I don't know, just some kind of like a Play-Doh monster by the end of it. So you start to get a really weird kind of layout sometimes where what WordPress was originally designed to be, you have to really like mutate it in order to have it do other things outside of blogging. And that can, it can be good. Like it has some good plugins, but you have to really kind of bend it to your will in order to get it to do the thing that isn't blogging sometimes. And then with that tight coupling, you get a PHP front end that, yes, you can add React to that, or you can add these other front end frameworks that are great at adding quick, reactive, responsive user experiences like React, Svelte, and Vue are kind of like the big three. And yeah, so you can add those in, but because you're tacking that on top again, it gets a little bit funky and it's not as performant. And because WordPress is typically like the front end is always built on every page request, those servers can get hit pretty hard if you all of a sudden like have a Black Friday deal and everyone comes in and you need to have your server create those pages over and over and over again. There can be scalability issues essentially. And so with that tight coupling of WordPress, um, it can do a ton of stuff because of those plugins, and it can kind of fit into a lot of people's needs. And there's a lot of people who are happy with WordPress, but most companies, as soon as they start to like really want to streamline on performance or on the editing experience, because they're not making blogs, they're making marketing pages or landing pages or things like that, they start to really hit up against those limitations of WordPress, and they start to look for something that's a little bit more tailored to their use case from the start, like from the ground up, and not just kind of like, oh, well, we made a landing page plugin to tack onto WordPress, and now it's kind of a landing page creator. It's yeah, so you can do pretty much anything with WordPress, but the experience both for your developers, your editors, and your end users may vary.
Exactly. And by the way, you mentioned this issue about scalability. And I will probably mention when we were talking about scalability, about one story of one of our clients who had a TV show presentation. They were invited to the TV, and their sales afterwards just exploded. And people came to their website. The website was WordPress based,
Yeah.
and it failed. Next week, they were contacting us to Prismic, by the way.
There you go. There you go.
By the way, I'm not a Prismic evangelist. I am I'm very open to use many CMS systems. So I'm not saying this like advertising. It was just one experience. But
yeah.
I use, I'm going with several CMS systems. Okay. So
I want to tackle that just super quick. I know I work for Prismic, but I try to not like, yes, I am technically by definition a Prismic evangelist, but I think it is a poor idea for someone who sells sports cars to tell people, oh yeah, you can take this thing off road, you can take it into the ocean, you can do anything with this. Like, no, like the thing that you sell, the thing that you are helping people understand, show it in its best light. Like I think Prismic shines in the use cases that we've specialized around. I wouldn't, do certain things with Prismic, and I'm happy to say that. So like I'm trying. I know that this seems like I'm just going to be like, oh, Prismic's the best for anything, but I'm not going to say that, and I never really have. I'm trying to give my most fair critique of kind of all CMSs, both traditional and headless. They both have their benefits and their downsides. So
thank you. And yes, I think as we go into more specific scenarios, we'll probably see where it depends a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's basically what a traditional CMS is. That was WordPress as an example. Then let's talk about scenarios. Again, we're answering this question about when going headless, when going traditional. And one of the first scenarios, maybe I'll get started with this one because this is probably the most logical one. Like with this one specifically, I think the answer is pretty straightforward. Multi-device. When we're having one website, one application on your phone, perhaps. So that is probably one scenario which headless it's making a lot of sense. May you talk about that scenario? How will that look like?
Yeah. So just to go a bit deeper on that, teams definitely need to ship to lots of different platforms sometimes. Sometimes you just have a website and that's kind of all you need to worry about. Where other times you also have an app that you need to push content to. And you also have, like a lot of people kind of go to the extremes and they say like, and you also have like a smartwatch app. And I'm like, I don't know anyone who actually has a smartwatch app, but sure, like we'll play into this thing. And you also have like a VR app, and you also have billboards in, around the city, and you have, information in airports that all need updating, all need that content to be managed somewhere. I think the majority of people are just kind of like making websites, but some companies definitely have this like multi-device, multi-platform, at least, kind of use case. And with that comes the need to have that decoupling, or at least have one place where you can put all your content, and different platforms can request that content, and you can send that out to different places. Where if you have a tightly coupled CMS and front end every single time, you have to go to like 5 different platforms in order to update those 5 different, sorry, so to like 5 different CMSs to update those 5 different platforms, right? So like if that theoretical like airport billboard or whatever, like, the airport terminal kiosk has its own CMS, that's just kind of a pain in the butt to have maybe the same information put there as well as like 4 other places, and then your team has to go and make sure everything's up to date, everything is the same across all of those different platforms. Where with Headless, you can store it all in one spot, and all of those different platforms can request the same data from that one place. Um, I still think that, I'm not going to send the same data necessarily to my website that as I would an Apple Watch, right? Like that's, it's probably not going to be like a one-to-one thing. So you're still probably going to have to create some different documents within your CMS if you're sending to those 2 different places. But at least it's kind of all managed in one spot. Yeah.
Okay, yes, and I'm adding a couple of examples on this multi-platform or multi-website or multi-places experience.
Yeah.
For instance, we have one client. I don't know whether I can mention names for clients in a podcast, by the way. Okay, I won't mention name, but it is a cultural exchange brand offering exchanges or exchange experiences for people who want to work on the US or in Japan, for people who want to study in the US, and so on and so forth. And they have actually many programs for everyone in all ages. And they have many websites, like a lot of websites, not only for each of their brands, but like for many, even for one sub brand. They have like this website that is targeting this marketing campaign for content. It is more sort of like a blog website, which is having a little from their brand. It is having even Google Google AdSense. I think that is the name, like advertising within the blog. Like they are trying to make it appear a little bit like very organic, not stealthily. They have other websites for that same subbrand. I think they have like 20 websites or something. So I think that for marketing people, it might make sense in some scenarios to be able to manage all of that content within one place and then push that onto different locations.
Absolutely. And I do think that the multiple website scenario is probably the most common. Yeah, like completely agree with that. I think I was taking the question more as like as that, like, both
Platforms
both a
specifically, yes.
website and an app somewhere or something like that. I just feel like,
Yeah,
yeah, the number of companies that do both like a website and an iPad app with the same content is slim, it feels like. But yeah.
yes. Yeah. And I was thinking about another scenario. That is the one of a web application that is having their website part of things, like their marketing thing, their homepage, their about us, their services pages, their product pages, their use case pages. And there's also the application itself. But within the application, there might be modules on which there's information. There might be this welcome module when you're new to the application, and on your dashboard, you're having one picture or one illustration and maybe one small headline and paragraph explaining what to do next and a couple of links. So that is something we had seen ourselves managing via Prismic. And then we're talking about Prismic used for the website itself, but also for the web application. So that was another scenario. And we also have this, and this is a little bit more complex, maybe not as common, but we have this website plus web application plus mobile application. That was an application for women to track their menstruation days. And we also have to allow the editors to manage snippets of information that appeared on the application, on the mobile application. And then again, Prismic was a tool that we were able to use. So for allowing the editors the easiness of managing all of that within the same place. Okay, so given this scenario, I think this is one for which it might be pretty obvious that Headless is a potentially good way to go. However, I mentioned this example about a client having like 20 plus websites, and they're managing that all with Webflow. What will be the advantage if you can mention the advantages of going headless instead of Webflow for one scenario such as this?
Yeah, I mean, I've used Webflow a bit. I haven't used it for like 20 websites, so I can't really speak precisely to the limitations there. Maybe it handles them very well. Yeah, I'm just not sure there. I do think that overall, I think I would have to kind of guess at how Webflow works in that scenario a bit too much to kind of say with any kind of intelligence where it shines and where it falls apart. Yeah, because I was kind of go on a hunch of like, it's probably different CMSs for each of those sites, but maybe it's one and it allows you to update multiple sites at once. I'm not sure, so sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so I think that for a marketing person who is also already acknowledged, who's known Webflow pretty well, I think that the reason why to go in Webflow will potentially be being comfortable with what is going on backstage. I believe that is one reason that not one but a few of our clients will have for keeping things on CMS systems such as Webflow. By the way, let me just make a little bit of a note here. I see Webflow both as a website builder and as a website CMS. We use Webflow for building pretty much all of these CSS and HTML that we produce. That is going to be exported and then later on integrated into other platforms such as HubSpot, such as Prismic, and so on and so forth. So when I'm mentioning Webflow within this context, I'm specifically referring to the CMS part of it, because we use Webflow anyways, even for Prismic. Like we use Webflow plus Prismic as part of our workflow. Okay,
cool.
Yeah, because I mean, Webflow is an extraordinary tool for building HTML. I find it to be very, very good for doing that. Okay, this being said, I think that a potential reason why some of our clients prefer Webflow for managing multiple websites will be that they're so familiar and comfortable. Like I'm talking about marketing directors who happen to be technical persons. That is the pattern that I'm seeing here. And what I guess is that they are so comfortable and on their element by seeing everything to occur on Webflow that that is something of value for them. Now, potential reasons why I will argue it will be good to move to headless CMS, given this specific scenario, will be to allow the marketing people to manage all of the content within the same platform. That is one. Second one, I will argue it will be avoiding errors. When you're managing 20 different websites, those on Webflow, those are 20 separate projects. There's nothing that attach them together and on the back end. And And then when you're editing a lot of stuff into different places, it is not going to be efficient, but also it is going to potentially produce errors that have to be attended in 20 different places. Like we technically, like with that client, we do QA, uh, 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 considering different websites or one by one. That is what I meant. So that is also one reason why I will think that headless will make a lot of sense for this kind of scenarios.
Cool.
Okay, so we talked about multi-device, developer freedom, and this is one that I like. I mean, as as website services providers, developer freedom. I think we might be talking about pretty much every traditional CMS system here. Maybe because of you are familiar with WordPress, we'd like to talk about this, sort of comparing it to WordPress. What are we talking about when we say developer freedom?
Yeah. So I think to touch on developer freedom, I kind of want to just kind of step back for a second and touch on like specialization, right? So I kind of alluded to it a bit where WordPress is kind of a Swiss Army knife, and uh, I I think people usually have that like, wow, that person's a Swiss Army knife; they can do anything. And here, like that's kind of what I mean, but also Swiss Army knives have, a good side and a bad side. Yes, you have a knife and a screwdriver and a nail file and a saw and a toothpick and like 20 other things. Yeah, you do. But is that saw a great saw? Not really, right? Like, is that knife like your best knife? Like, is anyone in a five-star kitchen cutting up salmon fillet with a Swiss Army knife? Not really, right? Like, they're going to use a specialized tool for that specialized job. So, Swiss Army knives can be nice to like get things off the ground or just make sure, like, all right, we've got all the bases covered. God forbid I need a toothpick. I've got one. But if you know what you need, if you know what your business needs, if you hire an expert that comes in and says, all right, I see that you're making a marketing site that is attached to, some like an e-commerce. Uh, we're going to choose these different tools to specifically hit each of your needs rather than just grab something and be like, I don't know, I've got a big old bag of tools and hopefully there's something in here that helps us out down the road. I don't know. So with that specialization, you need developers to be, or sorry, you need to have your developers free enough to choose that special tool for the job. So when I worked at an agency, we would sometimes come in and use Next.js. Back then, you also would maybe choose Gatsby for a different website. We would choose Prismic for certain sites if we thought that was the best tool for that job. You would choose Craft CMS or WordPress for other sites. It was not a one size fits all approach. It was all right, let's look at what this client needs. Let's look at their budget. Let's look at the technical specifications for this they already have an existing WordPress site over here. Should we migrate the data over to something new? Should we just spin up a second CMS and we put them both together in the front end? Like we've done stuff like that. So it's always what is the need and what is the best tool for that job, right? Like that's why carpenters or handymen, I'm not very handy. I'm just trying to use this as a metaphor. But that's why they have a whole bag of tools rather than just like one Swiss Army knife. Their hammer specializes in hidden nails. And so if you have that kind of a problem, you want to pick the best tool for the job. There are lots of different front end frameworks that can be performant in different ways or more app like or work better for like static marketing sites that don't update that much. And so a good developer is going to come in and say, all right, I see your problem. I know exactly what framework to use. I know exactly how we're going to be styling it, what tools we're going to use there. And also since you are building marketing sites, we're going to choose Prismic. Or since you're building an app, we're going to choose something else maybe, right? Because Prismic, just plainly, we're not trying to be a content management system for apps. So like if you have an app, Prismic has a lot of tools to help you build marketing sites really efficiently, to get you up and running with the full page components that we call slices, and just make it so that your editing team can create marketing and landing pages really, really well. And it's just very intuitive throughout the whole tool chain. But we specialize around Next.js and SvelteKit and Nuxt. We're not trying to tailor to Flutter developers, which is a mobile and a web type of language for creating front ends, but primarily like a mobile developer or like Kotlin or just any kind of like there's not a lot of Prismic in the app store, right? But there are CMSs that specialize for that. So if I were a developer coming to you and you're like, I need an app, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go find the best CMS for apps, because they will have tools that specifically tailor towards apps and make that editing experience really, really good. So I think when it comes down to developer freedom, you are freeing them up to use their expertise to make the best decisions for your use case, for your needs. And then you get a much better result at the end of the day.
I will agree with that totally. I like this mention on the right tool for the right scenario. And it became pretty clear for me a lot of years ago, when I am a nerd about computers. I like to open them up and do stuff with them. And we had this iMac that we wanted for which we wanted to change the SSD module. And because I am a nerd of that, on my free time, I grabbed a screwdriver, which was not meant for that iMac, and I started to open it. And I had like a store in which I will be able to buy the proper one like at 10 minutes from when I was. But I didn't really want to. So I spent like 20 minutes trying to open the first screw, to unlock this first screw. And I screwed up the computer. Like I scratched it heavily.
Yeah.
And what it was, a screw, became to be a sort of very damaged thing.
Yeah.
And I pretty much damaged the exterior of the iMac. It was a beautiful iMac. Then I decided to go to the store. I bought the proper screwdriver, and within 2 seconds, I was just screwing all the other screws. And I realized how important it is to have the proper tool for the proper job. Like we can really get things wrong if we don't have the right tools. Anyways, back to the topic. We were talking about developer freedom as one scenario on which a headless CMS can allow you, as a lead of marketing, to open the door to different areas of expertise on developers, to add, change, remove things on your website or websites. And that led me to future proof. Because what if today you do not know that you will need something in the future, and you are right now deciding on what CMS system should I go for? So it is very common for us with our clients to add new functionalities that were previously not even thought of down the road.
For sure. That's a good sign, right? Like we're
Yes.
growing. We need something new. That's always a good sign that you did a good job with the website. And hey, new features are usually a sign of growth.
Exactly. And yeah, maybe on marketing, they're experiencing with this new form that is to be API connected to another database, and then send the information back to HubSpot, because they're only using HubSpot as a CMS, or maybe they're, for some reason, we have one that is a client who's having integration between HubSpot and Salesforce. The website is on Webflow, and they are experimenting right now with formulas for another campaign that require that to talk to each other together. It can be a little bit messy.
Mhm.
But anyway, that is for a client who just needed an informational website, a website with just standard pages with information about their products, their services, their use cases. So scalability. I just mentioned one example. What can you tell me about that scalability?
Skill building or future proofing.
I'm sorry, I say it's scalability.
Okay.
Future proofing. Yeah, sorry about it.
All good, all good. Yeah, so I think it's an important thing to go in and think about. I mean, like anytime you make a big investment on a website is a big investment. It's like buying a car. You're thinking, all right, like, I'm gonna get, I don't know, a Toyota because I see that, they're still good 15 years after you buy them usually. So I think it's a good investment. It's future proof where you don't want a car that you're gonna have to replace in a year or two, right? Like that's kind of a nightmare and a waste of money. So future proofing your site is absolutely crucial. It's something that anytime you are investing in a new site, you go in thinking about like, is this going to be good in a few years? And I think one of the best ways to do that is to um, really think about one, like, is this platform going to be around in a few years, right? Like if you hop on a brand new CMS that's only been out for a few months and you put all your eggs in that basket in terms of content, it's going to be at least a pain if that company later goes out of business and they just disappear. I'm sure, like I'm not trying to fear monger in the sense of like you would be able to get your content out, but it's still like now it's another month of developer time to move you from, shiny new CMS or shiny new anything really, CRM, a front end framework or something like that to something that's a little bit more reliable, right? So like WordPress has been around since like 2007. Prismic is coming up on like 10 years, I think. There's a lot of CMSs that have been around and kind of like proven the test of time. So that's just one thing. It's like trying to pick tools that aren't just the like, wow, I just saw this on Hacker News or like, I like they just launched. Let's rest multiple people's salaries on the hope that this tool is going to be around in 5 years. Um and then the other thing or and another thing would be uh I like this new trend that we see around composability. And it's basically the idea that instead of buying into a monolith like WordPress, like Drupal, uh, you go with those specialized tools that allow you to kind of click different things together like Legos and kind of build the thing that you need. And the future proof part of that is that if any of those Legos doesn't meet your needs anymore or goes bankrupt or jacks their prices through the roof and you're like, oh, we can't afford this anymore. You pop that one Lego off and you pop another one on, right? So like if like, oh man, we used to do all our analytics through this thing, but that's not serving us anymore. Let's pop that analytics platform off and we add a new one. Everything else stays the same. Your CMS stays the same. Your front end stays the same. All of that can continue to exist. And it becomes like a Theseus's ship, if you're familiar, where like, in the Odyssey, uh, Theseus started out with the ship, and over time, over the voyage, like each part of it was replaced, and it's still kind of the same ship. Or I guess the question is it the same ship? But essentially, right? Like, is it the same website? Sure. And so as those pieces get replaced, you don't need to burn the whole ship down and build it up from nothing if the platform doesn't work for you. With Drupal, it's a very popular CMS and like website management system that comes with a ton of stuff out of the box. You get authentication, you get I'm blanking on the other stuff, but like if you look at the website for Drupal, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff that you get for free out of the box. Like all this content stuff, like wow, that's really cool. And with that, if you don't like any of those or like some of those things, it's not as easy to click that off or like pull that Lego piece off and add a new thing in because it's out of the box, but it's also like part of the box. It's also like built in and baked in so that it's not necessarily as easy to just toss another one on. Where with this composable movement, Prismic is just specializing in being the best darn CMS we can be. Imagix or Cloudinary are just specializing in being the best darn image CDNs or like hosts that they can be. Like Cloudinary's entire thing is just serving up images really well, and they're like probably $1 billion company or something, right? So that's what they do. They're not trying to do everything. They're not trying to also be Shopify and a WordPress and a Walmart. They're just trying to serve you images as fast as they possibly can and videos as fast as they possibly can. And the fact that you can clip that into your website, and then you have like Resend, which is an email platform that like works really well. And so you clip all these things together and you make the most performant thing for your use case. And it's so future proof because at any time, if Resend goes out of business, if Cloudinary isn't suiting your needs anymore, you pop it off, you pop a new one on, and you keep on going without losing months of developer time each time.
So, Yuan, what are your thoughts on the size of marketing team as a decisive factor for considering whether going one way or another in terms of CMS? For example, let's say this scenario on which the CEO, marketing director, content editor, designer, and developer and everything is the same person, then in that scenario, it might make a lot of sense to go with a DIY solution, especially if that person is not technically knowledgeable or probably won't have time to care about all the details and going for something more complex in terms of execution. Versus another scenario on which there might be a considerably large marketing team. Maybe there are different roles for content editors, roles for developers, for UI designers, and also perhaps there is collaboration with agencies and external providers overall who might need access to edit things on the website. For that one, might make a lot of sense to go another way. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Where yeah, I agree that if you are one person, you most likely just need to do the Swiss Army knife approach to just your business, right? You are just trying to do good enough at a lot of things and maybe specializing in one thing. Like if you're selling t-shirts, the most important part there probably isn't how performant your CMS is. It's probably at the beginning just making darn good shirts. And then from there, right, like once you kind of have a little bit of traction, you get a little bit of money. As you said, you can start hiring certain people to take over certain jobs. And once you scale to a certain size, then it's like, all right, this Wix site that got us this far isn't serving us anymore. And this is our current bottleneck. Let's move to something that is going to be more performant because as your website loads faster, you get more sales. Google ranks you higher. So it's like, okay, now I want to start focusing on website performance and really getting our content right so it gets shared around. So yeah, there's definitely a time for every tool. The scissors that you use in elementary school, those safety scissors aren't going to be the ones that a hairdresser is going to use once they, learn their craft. So it's like you kind of start with something a bit safer, a bit, something with like really big guardrails and like very big helping hand that kind of just lets you do exactly what they know you want to do, right? Like where Wix or Squarespace are going to say like, hey, you want to sell your like one item, right? Here, we're going to make it so that you can't mess this up. But also there's going to be a whole lot of bloat and a whole lot of other stuff that comes with that. So when the time comes, you typically move off of those platforms and don't pay them their exorbitant fees and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree. The smaller the team, the more you just need to um, offload a lot of work to more automated systems like Squarespace, like Wix, um, and like lots of other tools that you'll be using to run your small business.
Now, we have talked about this scenario of a solo team that then gets to grow bigger, and as growing bigger, progressively need to allow a proper team or even multiple teams to collaborate. And then the initial solution that was considered might not be a solution in the future. But I was thinking about this other scenario. I specifically had on my mind this e-commerce Shopify scenario on which, yes, the brand starts small, but then it gets bigger. However, Shopify might still be a proper solution for their core needs because Shopify is made to scale up as long as your needs remain the same, only that you need bigger. Something like Shopify will probably fit you pretty nicely. What are your thoughts on that other scenario?
Yeah, I think, I mean, first off, I think Shopify plus Prismic kind of goes back to that composability argument again, where it's like it's cool that you can even bring something big like Shopify with Prismic and send that to like a Next.js site, which is like a very powerful front end framework. And you can toss in lots of other things and kind of create this perfect site for your use case. When it comes time to talk, like, all right, we've been using Shopify for pretty much everything, which you can also have like the front end as Shopify, or you can do Shopify Headless, right? Like you can do lots of different combinations of things. It really starts to come down to it depends, right? Like where that marketing director, if they start to feel pain points around certain things that Shopify is giving them, like, hey, we're using the Shopify front end and our performance is getting hammered. It's like we're doing these audits and we're finding that the reason we're not performing well, or at least one of the reasons, right? There's never one, is that our site's slow, or that there's too much just stuff that's shipping along with the Shopify front end. So, okay, maybe we go headless. And it's like, the CMS tools, the marketing tools that are built into Shopify, they're holding us back in some kind of a way. They're counterintuitive. They're not doing the thing that I want them to do. The designer sent me this, and I'm trying to implement that in the CMS, but it's just not working the way that I need it to. Can you help us out some way, right? Where Shopify really shines. I see Shopify kind of like a WordPress, but in the sense that they started as e-commerce and are kind of like ballooning from that core feature, the same way that WordPress started as a blogging platform and kind of ballooned from that feature, right? So Shopify at its core is a darn good e-commerce platform. And if you just use it that way and bring in other tools to shine where they are very good, I think you probably get a bit more performance, but also just a better user experience, both for your content team and also for your end users, most likely. You can use Shopify for everything top to bottom and just run a successful website and business through nothing but Shopify. People do it all the time, right? But as you grow, as you start to see like, oh man, we're doing, 1 million this year, we're trying to do 2 million next year. We're getting killed on those margins and we need to improve the speed here and there. That's where you start to get, have conversations with that marketing director and say, all right, yeah, we can absolutely look at some tools. I will put together some documentation for you, or like I'll put together like a demo or something and to show you maybe Prismic or maybe Sanity or some kind of a tool like, hey, here is something that might suit your needs. And then you know, obviously have those conversations and you do your best recommendations. So it's going to vary, unfortunately. So like, you know, it's not going to be just a one size fits all kind of thing. But that's the best part about composability and about headless and about the way this works is the answer a few years ago was just, oh, it's WordPress and it's either this plugin or that plugin, and that's all you get to choose, right? Like if you don't like that plugin, I don't know what to tell you. You better get just comfy with it because it's the best plugin that I can find in the plugin store. So sorry.
Even in that scenario, what are the considerations that a marketing director might have in mind when thinking about, should we stay here or should we jump to something else? Do we need to do so?
Yeah. And I would say to anyone out there, this is the kind of thing that you want to hear your developer say. If you're working with an agency and they're saying, yeah, we use the right tool for the job, that's a green flag. That's a good thing. If you go to an agency and they say, "Well, for every single thing that comes to the door, we do Shopify and Prismic and Next.js and we host it on Vercel and we do our," you know, like if they have the answer for you already before even hearing what you have to say, they're you're probably just going to get, you know, something that is going to be frustrating for you because you uh need something just better, right? Like it's like getting a tailored suit versus just like, hey, I sell one size suit. I hope it fits you, right? Like that's just not gonna look as good. It's not gonna suit your needs. So this is a green flag that you're hearing right here. So
I have another one here, and that is, will you agree on the editor's experience to be another important factor for marketing directors to consider when deciding whether going one way or another in terms of CMS system?
yeah, and I worked quite a bit with the craft CMS too, which is yeah, it's a cool CMS. Like, yeah, I like lots of different CMSs, even though I worked for one for 3 years now. But yeah, so in terms of like the editor experience, I think a lot of it comes down to two things. One is the UI and the either the simplicity or the complexity of that UI and how that's laid out for people. I know that people dropping into a WordPress site, that like sidebar with all of the different things can be a little bit intimidating to people who aren't super technical, and they get like wow, like where do I even start? What do I click? What's all this stuff? What's going on? Um, and then I think the other side of that is the developers putting up guardrails and educating their clients well enough so that uh, you know, it's still going to happen, but so that the mistakes are few and far between, or they're at least like small, and you know, it's not easy to break the site. You know, and I can get into like the nitty gritty of code and how you can check to make sure that this is the case, and you know, just basically put in some logic within each component so that if they didn't fill out the header of this component, don't show it at all, or show something else, or have a fallback, you know, string or some text there that makes it so that the site doesn't look just horrendous if the editor does the wrong thing. Because hey, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and it's a lot easier for developers to look at something and go, well, obviously you're not going to click that button. But for everyone else is like, why wouldn't I click that button? Right? Like why is there a button there if I can't click the button? Like that's what buttons are for. Um, so yeah, I think it's about selecting a CMS that gives a good editor experience. Like I think Notion right now, not so much as a CMS, but just as a content editing system, kind of has the gold standard, if not close to, in terms of ease of use, ease of editing. Like I can add headings really easily. It allows me to do like markdown, or I type slash and it gives me all the different things that I can add to that like rich text. And so those kinds of things make editing experiences really nice. I know like you've been on the web for a while too. Like 10 years, 15 years ago, like a rich text editing inside like old like message boards and forums and stuff, which is always like, oh, this just feels awful. I don't even want to bother trying to highlight things and select them. Like it was just always like, ugh, right? So giving them like just a good text editor is so underrated in terms of like, man, don't make me use something that just feels like it's off of a message board from 20 years ago. Like give me something that feels like it's modern, like it could be used in Notion or something like that. Like give me that good editing experience that makes me want to write. Now it makes me go, oh, I have to write a blog post today. Oh, I'd rather do anything else than like open up that editor and start typing in there because that experience just stinks. Or like I don't even know how to go in and edit this because it's the UI is so complicated. Is the like how do I edit the navigation again? Is that like under like settings or under pages or under some other weird thing? Like where do I click just to like edit that banner? I don't even know. There's just so much going on here, right? So yeah, it's a bit of developer education in terms of the devs giving good documentation, or even a video, like walking them through, like, here's how you set this up. Here's what you don't want to go click. But if you do, don't worry, we'll fix it. Right. Like that sort of thing. Um, and maybe adding notes or things in the UI where necessary of like, here's what this field is. And a quick note of like, make sure that this is always filled in or something like that, right?
Okay. So again, into the experience for editors, what are the workflows, perhaps complex workflows or scheduling tools or publishing flows on which one user is to approve the change of another? What are those complex editing workflows that you think Headless might provide that the traditional solutions can't?
Yeah, so for this, I'm not sure how much of it is actually going to be like a headless versus monolithic or traditional CMS kind of comparison, where it's just more of a CMS by CMS take, where like at Prismic, we created our releases feature, like every other feature that we needed, but it's not something that just comes standard if you are a headless CMS. Like in our releases feature, you can create a release based on different content. So if you say have a Black Friday sale coming up, but you have like 3 different things that you want to release on the days going up to that event, you can create some content or change some pages, set that as a release, schedule it for the day before Black Friday, and then when that day hits, that content will be published, and you can have a bunch of those all queued up, all with separate content, and they don't interfere with each other. Like there's a lot that you can do with scheduling and content releases in Prismic, but that's because we wanted to focus on that kind of thing. Other CMSs don't have that feature, both traditional and headless, but others do, right? So it's once again kind of falling back to the what's the best tool for the job. If releases are a big thing for your content team, if content preview, so like seeing what the site's actually going to look like before you hit publish, if that's important, which I think it is, then you're going to want a CMS that has a preview feature. Not every CMS has that, because depending on the front end framework or depending on how they are architected on the back end, it can be a tricky problem to solve. So if that doesn't matter to you, cool. But if it does, then you need to like narrow down your criteria and see like, all right, what actually matters to me? And there's nothing about traditional or headless that stops a scheduling or release feature from being implemented. It's just, where did they put their attention and focus? And is it on that feature or on something totally different?
Okay, perfect. Very nice. So I'm going to summarize here. We have talked about when to go headless, and when to go traditional. We have told that headless is when you're having front end and back end detached, and traditional is a little bit more of monolithic. We're talking about WordPress, Webflow, HubSpot, Drupal, etc., etc. We have talked then about scenarios, and through those scenarios, we have given reasons why to go one way or another. Those scenarios will be multi-device when you require to have different devices or websites published. We're talking about developer freedom, about multiple teams managing content, about future-proof, about scalability, about the experience for editors, about composability, and about e-commerce. And basically, we have emphasized that there's a tool that is going to do good for every scenario, and that it depends. So, any last words here on this topic that you would like to share with people who are going to listen to us?
I think the only thing that I would add is that like one thing with the small shop owner into like the more fleshed out team, I think the next step up, and clearly it's a much bigger step up, but it's kind of like that enterprise level. And that's where you really get into things that's not just like, oh, like, is it, a bit performant, or is it, like, how does this help me in my small business? But it's like, all right, this needs to be used by potentially hundreds of people. We are making, like $100 million a year or something big like that. And they have very specific enterprise problems, right? Like it's not the same problems that the shopkeeper selling t-shirts has. And those enterprise companies need someone who understands enterprise and have people on hand to handle those enterprise problems and to respond to those requests and to have the kind of security that the enterprise requires, because now you're dealing with a whole bunch of lawyers and a whole bunch of user data, and just security becomes a really big issue. And that's one thing where Headless is really nice, because it is very, very secure, especially compared to a WordPress or something of that sort, where you are more vulnerable to attacks just because it is a bigger platform that has a bunch of known exploits, or at least they become known and then they're patched, but still, like, a WordPress site is a bit more vulnerable than, say, something with Prismic, or just something that's composable, where only like a small part of what you are shipping to the front end is actually exposed, and everything is kind of hidden behind this wall that hackers and just people with malicious intent don't really have the same access to. It has benefits of scalability and other things that we kind of touched on. But yeah, I think the question of enterprise is one where you really have to look at what is the best darn tool for the job, because we are pouring a lot of money into this, and we want to get the best bang for our buck.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Well, Alex, thank you very much for this extraordinary conversation. I'm a nerd on those CMS topics, and I really enjoyed this. Where can we find more about you and Prismic?
Yeah, so Prismic is at prismic.io. We've got Twitter accounts and all that kind of stuff too that you can check out. I personally am at trost.codes, trost.codes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I make videos for the Prismic YouTube channel to teach people how to get up and running in terms of making a website with Prismic. It's very developer centric, but if you've got a developer team and you're a marketing director listening, hey, check out some of my videos, or send them to your team, and hopefully I can get you up and running with a pretty cool looking site. And yeah, that's
thank you. And we should do more videos targeting marketing people, by the way. So there's a lot of for developers nowadays, and marketing people are a little bit abandoned, I think.
Yes,
we should do that.
Targeting them.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you very much, Alex. Have a nice time there. See you in the next one.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay, well,